ESPN News, the ESPN app, and SiriusXM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. What's going on, nerds? If the Packers 49ers COVID situation has your head spinning, you're not alone. Reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Down to your fourth-string quarterback. Dallas, America's team. Why not bring in Captain America? Remember, what was it called? Marvel Civil War, right? Everyone thought Captain America, he'd be with the powers that be. No, Captain America's a real American. He went against the government. That's right. Know your Marvel Civil War history. Kaepernick, Captain America. Why not sign him? Why doesn't America's team at least take a look at the Cap? Be a part of the Max Kellerman Nation. Sorry, there's no just Max Kellerman Nation. It's like the Bronx, but just Brooklyn. Raj, if you think it's the Brooklyn, I feel sorry for you. It's not.
Nah, I don't think that at all.
I think you may think that. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Be a part of Max Kellerman Nation on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. 888-SAY-ESPN. ESPN Nation is brought to you by Dr. Pepper. It's official. College football's back. And so is your favorite Dr. Pepper-loving college football town, Fansville. Head to a store near you to treat your inner college football fan to an ice-cold 20-ounce Dr. Pepper today. First, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. ESPN reports the Niners have no new positive COVID-19 tests. First reported by NBA Sports Bay Area, confirmed by ESPN, I should say. The Niners will continue to prepare for Thursday night's game against the Packers as scheduled after receiving no additional positive COVID-19 tests Thursday morning. ESPN has confirmed. The updated testing news was first reported Thursday by NBC Sports Bay Area. The Niners placed 4 players on the reserve COVID-19 list Wednesday and declared all 4 of them out for Thursday's game. So what's going to, how can the Niners field the team? Here's ESPN NFL insider, of course, Adam Schefter on whether or not there's even going to be Thursday Night Football.
Right now, it's going to be played. And short of there being a number of positive tests tomorrow on Thursday, I don't see another way. I asked somebody this evening, what are the chances this game gets postponed, pushed back, canceled? And I was told 0%. Now, there's always a chance that something could happen, but I think that gives you a window into the thinking of some of the people surrounding this game and involving this game. They're determined to play it. They're planning to play it. And right now, by all indications, they are going to play it.
So we were debating on First Take today whether it's a must-win game for the Packers in that case. The way the Niners abused them in the NFC Championship game, the way you can run all over the Packers on that run defense, the way the team got Aaron Rodgers no help in the offseason and no help at the trade deadline. Nice job. It must be a must-win game, right? You got to beat a depleted Niners team that hasn't exactly looked like world beaters. I mean, they are desperate. They're at 500 in the toughest division by far in football. There's no team under 500 in the division. It's a must-win game for Rodgers, right? Wrong. It's not a must-win game for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. It's a, boy, to really feel bad to lose this game. It's not a must-win game. You think the Bears are running away with the NFC North? Think the Vikings are or the Lions are? If the Packers lose, they're tied with the Bears. You seen the Bears' offensive line? Ain't going to happen. No, it's not a must-win game. And by the way, it's still not who's playing their best football right now, although Damian Woody today was telling me it is. That's what Belichick used to say, like right now, start playing your best football. Teams evolve over the course of a season in a full contact sport. Who's playing the best going into the playoffs? That's really what matters. Are the Packers going to make the playoffs? We all know they're making the playoffs. So is it a must-win game? No, it's not. It's not going to affect their playoff standing. They'll feel bad about themselves for a little while, I'm sure. Sometimes teams hit that rut in the middle of the season. Maybe this is the Packers' rut. I don't like them out of the NFC, mainly because Seattle and Green Bay are very similar. Remember, Green Bay won 13 games last year under rookie head coach Matt LaFleur's first season, in his first season, where Aaron Rodgers was turned into a game manager, didn't really know the offense, wasn't comfortable yet. They won 13 games and beat Seattle in the playoffs before they got stomped in the NFC Championship game by the Niners. But going into this season, Seattle went and got Jamal Adams. Once I saw that, I was thinking, I think maybe the best overall team in the NFC is the Saints. Then they went out and got Jamal Adams in Seattle. I thought, all right, man, that should improve their defense. Adams has been off the field recently. And then the Packers have done nothing to improve their chances in that way. And then the Bucs got everyone in the world, right? So you like the Bucs and the Seattle a little more than the Packers. But just keep in mind how how Green Bay looked early in this season, right? Aaron Rodgers feeling more comfortable. Devontae Adams in the flow of things. Aaron Jones, right? Bakhtiari, who's, by the way, Bakhtiari might be in the middle of a Hall of Fame career. Let's see how the second half of his career goes. But if those kind of guys are not on the field for you, it's not going to be the same because you don't have a real good defense. But I'll tell you what. And then I know Devontae gets back and you're like, okay, fine, but they still got whooped by the Bucs. Yeah, but when Adams got back, it was his first game back. He wasn't in rhythm, and Rodgers was forcing him the ball a little bit, trying to get him into the swing of things. You could see it. And the Bucs knew it, and they took advantage, and the Bucs beat him. The Bucs have a much better defense. But you protect him with Bakhtiari. You give him a run game with Aaron Jones, and you give him Devontae Adams back like in the swing of things. That's not a must-win game for I don't think the Pack's getting out of the NFC anyway, right? At this moment, it looks like the Bucs or Seattle, but you can't count them out. We know they're going to the playoffs, and we know Aaron Rodgers is going to have to be Superman in the playoffs for them to get out of the NFC, and even then, maybe not. But just remember what you were thinking when this team was healthy early in the season. You were like, oh, look at this. Packers' best team in the NFC. It's not a must-win game. That was Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart.
Just to see, be able to be a part of the process and be out there with the guys today was surreal.
If there is a path to success for Brown, this is it. He has found it. And I think this is going to work huge.
Speaking to the media for the first time since signing with the Tampa Bay Bucs, wideout, all-world wideout, when he's on the field, Antonio Brown expressed gratitude Wednesday for the opportunity to rejoin a team after a year and a half away from football. And I quote, being away from the game for a year and a half, just to be able to be a part of the process, to be out there with the guys today was surreal, something I don't take for granted, something I have a great appreciation for, a better perspective about, Brown said. Let me first start by saying, should Brown be given another opportunity? And absent conviction of a crime, right? And even maybe present conviction of a crime, eventually you may say, yes, he should have another opportunity. In other words, what's the point in punishment? Is it to simply pay back the perpetrator? Or is it hopefully a deterrent for others for bad behavior and maybe also rehabilitative? Rehabilitative? What the hell am I trying to say? Rehabilitative? Well, I feel like Raj all of a sudden. I can't speak English. Anyway, the point is, Raj, you want to see something funny, give Raj a word with more than 2 syllables.
Oh, I can nail 3 syllables every now and again.
Every now and then, but not necessarily in order. You can nail those syllables, but they may not be in order.
No, maybe mixed around a little bit. A little Don King in me, a little Don King.
I got Raj disease today. What happened to me? The point is, I think that punishment should not only act as a deterrent, but hopefully should help toward rehabilitation. Like, this is a lot of times someone gets a job and people are like, but they did this in their past. Should that disqualify them for ever rejoining society, right? But the NFL is a privilege. Yeah, but this is what he's worked his whole life to do, right? He has some serious accusations outstanding against him involving serious crimes if they're true. And so there is an open question whether he should even be allowed to play again, let alone already. Now, let's say you come down on the, yes, he should be allowed to play already. Would you want him on your team? Louis Riddick and I debated this on First Take today. He thinks that since it's a Tom Brady team, strong leadership, and they could really use him given the injuries at receiver? The answer is yes. I have a counterintuitive take there. I think, in fact, you don't want Antonio Brown going to a team that really needs him. You want him to be a luxury for that team. That's why I like him on the Bucs. Strong leadership, the strongest veteran leadership under center in Tom Brady, the GOAT, 6 championships. And weapons everywhere you look. Does Antonio Brown make them absurd and embarrassing on offense? That's how good they are. Like an embarrassment of riches? Yes, he does. But he's not necessary. And why do I like that better for Antonio Brown? I think it acts as a check against his worst impulses. You know, his impulse, remember, like the ego on this guy, which many people need to be great, obviously, but the ego on Antonio Brown. He got out of Pittsburgh. He points to Roethlisberger. Come on, AB. But then Le'Veon Bell points to Roethlisberger, and you go, hey, listen, both other stars are pointing to the quarterback. Maybe it is the quarterback. Then he goes to the Raiders, who do nothing but support him publicly. They pay him. The teammates say good things. The coaches, the whole thing, the organization. He throws every single one of them under the bus. Secretly tries to tape John Gruden, maybe illegally. Costs himself a $29 million guarantee, and he's off the team. And then that celebration clip you just saw, the celebratory clip, or as Raj might say, cebolatory clip.
Right, boy. My mama listening.
Oh, all right. Is she? Does your mother listen to the show?
She likes the show. She likes sports.
I would say, okay, sorry, Mrs. Grobes, except that's not your name. Raj Grobes is a made-up name. It's so obviously a made-up name. You just made that up.
Well, a little bit. Part of it is made up. Can't give you my government name.
I could hear it. Raj Grobes.
That's not what she named me. That is not what she named me.
Some bad screenwriter just uses that name in the screenplay.
Me and John Hecker, right?
Yeah, you and John Hecker, the punter for, who was it? For the Rams. Yeah,
the Rams.
You and John, Raj Grobes and John Hecker. Get out of here. I hear a fake made-up name when I know it when I hear it. Anyway, the point is this.
That's a great Vegas magical show, but go ahead.
Yes, that's true. The point is this. If AB knows that you need him, he gets full of himself. After the Raiders, he goes to the Patriots. And he's sending like really disgusting texts to these women who are making accusations against him, which is such a stupid thing to do. Because even if you believe you're justified, even if you believe that you're being set up or extorted in some way and that you're innocent, why would you put that in writing and hand it to someone who's accusing you? Makes you look bad. He's so unself-aware. He does not even aware that makes him look bad. Just like when he thought he was making Juju Smith-Schuster look bad by exposing a text Schuster sent him when Schuster was still in college. And was talking about how he admired AB and looked up to him. Everyone thought, boy, this is endearing of Juju Smith-Schuster. Makes him look good. But AB thought it made Juju look bad. And then he had an incident with local police and his baby's mother that he posted on social media. Once again, it made him look bad. He thought, obviously, if you posted on social media, you think that you're the hero there. Bad judgment, bad self-awareness, bad awareness, period. Not smart. And as I mentioned, I know AB may have emotional problems, but you can also be a jerk apart from mental health issues. Those are not mutually exclusive. You can have mental health issues and not be a jerk. You can be a jerk without mental health issues. Or you can have both, and he may have both. But I wouldn't say he should never get another chance, absent the conviction of a crime, for example. And he's getting it. So what do I mean by, like, it serves, if he's expendable, it serves as a check on his worst impulses. Remember, he kept tweeting things and posting on Instagram, like as though he's bigger than football, and he doesn't need football, so he took some time off. He said he's going to enroll to get some higher degree, right? First thing he did was post online, he's looking for someone to write his paper for him. What? AB, you want to take credit for someone else's? You want to plagiarize? You're putting it out there? But that's what you want. So what has he done? Did he write a novel or something? Like, what has AB done off the football field? He's a football player. One of the best ever, really, at the position. He's a football player. So he knows he needs football, and you would think that would calm him down. But actually recall, walking into the Patriots, he texted another woman who was making accusations against him. Another text that made him look terrible on the way into the Patriots franchise. And for that, Robert Kraft got rid of him. And then he took a shot at Kraft going out the door. No, I think AB needs to be in a position where he's like, oh, these dudes can get rid of me at any time. They really don't need me. I'm just a luxury. And if that can serve as a check on his on his lesser impulses, right? In addition to him hopefully having matured a bit, maybe it can work. Maybe he can stay on the field. So, like, if he was with the Baltimore Ravens, I don't like that at all. Lamar Jackson, young, hasn't done it yet in the playoffs, needs AB. Like, AB would make that offense so much better, but AB would be aware of that. And immediately, that, like, power is a corrupting influence. Understand, with everyone, it's a corrupting influence. When you have examples in history of people who walked away from real power, it's rare. People still remember George Washington for that. If you really want to know, like, what he's the first president, they wanted to make him king. He said, no, I'm going to be the president, right? Like, that's unheard of. Power is a corrupting influence on human nature. And when AB gets that, that's why, like, guys like Tom Brady are very rare. He wields a lot of power. But if you listen to him talk, and I've been critical of Brady at times, obviously, right? But if you listen to Brady talk, he's a mensch about it. That mensch is Yiddish for human being, but it means being a person in the best sense of the word. Remember when that radio host said something about his kid? And anyone could tell you, and I can too, Raj can, having worked in radio for years. You're trying to entertain people. You're on the air a long time. You're talking off the cuff a lot of the time. You'll say some stupid things. Anyone who ever done radio said some stupid things. So a radio host said a stupid thing at kind of like belittling Brady's kid. I'm sure he wished he could have that moment back, right? Brady refused to talk to him, but publicly said he should not lose his job over that. Like, he wanted it to be a teaching moment, right? A learning moment. Guys like Brady who've talked recently about using their, even as it relates to AB, passing along, or they say, what did they say? Pass it forward, right? Pay it forward. Because he talks about all the people who've helped him along the way and how he needs to put people in positions to succeed. That's really good. That's a really good leader, and it's a rare quality, in fact. People who wield their power not just for kind of personal gain, but can keep their egos in check, or at least use their egos to service the collective or to make the team better. AB has not shown that personality. AB is out for self. You put him on the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, and he realizes, oh my God, these dudes are unstoppable with me. He'll be insufferable. Put him on the Bucs with Tom Brady and Mike Evans and Godwin and Gronk and Brate and O.J. Howard. I know not everyone's healthy, but like when those guys are on the field, all of a sudden it's like, dude, of course you make us ridiculous, but we're competitive to win this thing without you. That might work. 888-SAY-ESPN. By the way, this is Bruce Arians on having doubts about signing AB.
I think when you judge people, is it allegation versus there's no convictions of anything? I think for people that want to doubt the decision, I defend my record on all those type of things. So I don't have a problem with it. It's not all just about winning.
Colin Kaepernick. I want to get into Cap. I don't have time this segment, but I'm going to get into Cap coming up. Cowboys, what are you going to start a 16th string quarterback? Or do you want Captain America? That's what Kaepernick is, Captain America. Playing for America's team. We're going to get into that coming up.
Max. The Captain America is brilliant. You know, as a Cowboy fan, I've been saying for weeks, and everyone's still on my tape. Tank, give it to everybody on the second contract, tank. The only thing I have to watch for would be to watch Kaepernick play and run around and do some stuff. The only reason I have to watch the Cowboys right now, I don't care about anything else but getting in the top five in terms of a pick. That would be brilliant. And Jerry loves to be the center of attention. What would make him more of the center of attention than getting Captain America on America's team?
I'm going to get into that. I'm going to get into why I call him Captain America. I'm going to get into why he would make sense for the Cowboys and Jerry Jones, in fact. And why he would make sense at this moment for America's team. And by the way, in the NFC East, I hate to tell you, Rod, you might mess around and win this thing. What's it going to take to win the NFC East?
No.
I'm rooting for the lowest possible win total just to see it. You know, I just want to get a 5-win team host a playoff game. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance, cars, homes, boats, motorcycles, RVs, and more at progressive.com. Max, you give out the number a lot, but then you don't get the calls. But I promise you this. I still don't know if I'm going to get the calls. That's what I promise. I think I will, but then I don't know. I fall in love with the sound of my own voice. So I will tell you this with certainty. I might get the calls. It's uncertain. The Cowboys call themselves America's team. They're in the worst division of all time. They're not going anywhere this year. Colin Kaepernick has been unfairly denied his right to work because he refused to parrot his employer's political speech. You know, when people say the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, gives you the right, like it shields you from, criminal prosecution for saying what you think. Unless you say, like, you cry fire in a crowded movie theater, right? There are limits. But you still have to deal with the consequences of what you say. You're not guaranteed a job, for example. And I understand that, but I've often wondered about this, and I haven't had a good answer. I haven't gotten a good answer. But I suspect it is not the case that an employer can make a condition of employment you're publicly parroting their political speech. You see what I mean? Can your boss say you work at a I don't know, whatever. You're flipping burgers, you're working at a phone company, you're a doctor, or you work at a hospital, wherever you work. Can your boss come to you and say, hey, I think this politically. You need to publicly pronounce that you think this also, or you can't work here? I don't know. I think First Amendment protections may extend to the workplace in that case. I don't know. But when Kaepernick, the reason I bring that up is when Kaepernick knelt for the national anthem, keep in mind, he at first just didn't stand for it. Nate Boyer, Green Beret, saw this. We've talked to him here on ESPN across many platforms. He saw the former kicker in the NFL, right? He saw this and it didn't sit right with him. And he talked to Kaepernick. And he said, look, when you sit down for the national anthem, it makes me feel bad, man. We're all Americans. Let's figure this out. And Kaepernick was open to it. He said, okay, I don't want to offend anybody. I'm protesting police brutality. And more broadly, really, social, racial injustice in this country. And Nate Boyer said, what about kneeling for the national anthem? Because kneeling is a sign of respect. And Cap said, yeah, he could do that. So he started kneeling. That was a compromise with Nate Boyer, Green Beret, because he didn't want former military and people of goodwill, Americans, to say, hey, you're disrespecting the military, for example. Because that's not what it's about. I'm exercising my First Amendment right to protest and to speech. Now, you might say, well, that, football field, that's no place to do it. You serve at your, employer's pleasure, although you have contracts in the NFL. And that's what I mean by parroting speech. If you say kneeling during the anthem is speech, then standing is also necessarily speech. There's no logical way around that. And if you say that you are fired, you can't work here anymore because you made a political statement by not standing for the national anthem, then what you're saying is you must parrot, you must support your employer's political speech. Remember, if kneeling is making a statement, so is standing. You have to parrot your employer's political speech in order to have a job here. But this is not a political job. It's a football job. He didn't break any rules in the NFL. You don't have to stand. He didn't break any laws. And then people, so that's like specifically, the issue of whether his kind of rights as an American extends to the workplace. I suspect it does, but I don't know. Anyway, he was denied his right to work. They wouldn't give him a job. Trained his whole life for this and was certainly one of the best 64 quarterbacks in the world, if not one of the best 32, right? I remember, but more broadly, this whole idea about protesting against the American flag has always split into two camps. And I'm talking about among people of goodwill, Americans who see each other, even if they disagree on issues, as the loyal opposition, as we used to in America more than we do now, I think. One camp says, if you don't respect the American flag, you're disrespecting America. That's very straightforward and obvious, right? And the other side says, wait a minute. We don't simply love America because we happen to be from here. That's nationalism. I love America no matter what. We love America for its highest ideals. For the fact that, because people would say things like, in North Korea, you can't do this, you'd be executed, right? Right, in North Korea, you can't do that, but in America, you can. So that when you kneel before the flag instead of stand, it's a really American thing to do. In that way, you're really honoring the flag. And that kind of debate between the two sides among people like good faith actors is ongoing. What was Colin Kaepernick protesting? Police brutality and more broadly racial injustice. And at the time in this country, things didn't look so bad. The economy had been growing for years. We had our first black president for a country whose original sin is slavery. It's an amazing thing. People were more optimistic. People, what are you protesting about? Police brutality, right? Several years later, bad Kaepernick. The tide of public opinion was against him. Several years later, there is division, stark division in America. There's a sense of hopelessness. There is a raging pandemic. The economy is shattered. Public trust in institutions, the media, but also government institutions, is shattered. People suspect one another, no longer the loyal opposition. Hey, we both love America. We just have different ideas. No, the other side is the enemy, right? And against this backdrop, George Floyd is murdered by the police, and riots break out all over America. And then people say, oh, Cap, we see what you were protesting. You were ahead of your time. Colin Kaepernick did a really American thing. I brought up the Marvel universe, right? Because Captain America, the comic book character, there was something called the Marvel Civil War, and the government wanted to register all the superheroes a certain way, and Iron Man, Tony Stark, who was the industrialist, the rich guy, is with the government. Let's do this. Captain America said, no, we're not going to be classified as less than, as citizens of the United States of America, because he's really American, the highest ideals, the principles of America. That's what Kaepernick was doing when he knelt. That is uniquely an American act. And he paid the price for it, too, with his career. Now, fast forward. Several years later, and I will get to the thrilling conclusion of this story coming up on the Max Kellerman Show, which is brought to you by Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. Starting Monday, by the way, you can stream the Max Kellerman Show daily on ESPN Plus with ESPN Plus. Raj, it seems redundant. What am I, Austin Powers? Allow myself to introduce myself? The Max Kellerman Show daily on ESPN Plus with ESPN Plus. But with ESPN Plus, you can stream the Dan Le Batard Show with Stu Gatz. You can stream Greeny. You're protesting police brutality and racial injustice. What about kneeling? Kaepernick says, okay, kneels. Very American thing to do. The very right to do what Kaepernick did is protected by that flag, by the First Amendment. But of course, other people say, no, but it's just disrespectful. So that's the argument that goes on among good faith actors. But of course, it's also used as a political football by bad faith actors. He's un-American. He's a bad guy. And the mainstream was against it because recall when he did it, we had just experienced, coming out of the worst recession since the Great Depression, 8 years basically of growth, We had a black president, which is an amazing thing for a country founded on the institution of slavery. And things were looking good and bright and optimistic. Then some dark days came. Faith in public institutions eroded. Americans against Americans as never before. Maybe not since the Civil War. Economy in the tank, a pandemic. Everyone's walking around with masks. And against that backdrop, civil unrest because George Floyd, a black man, was murdered by police. American cities on fire. And then all of a sudden people said, maybe Kaepernick was onto something. Maybe these are, because remember when he did it, it's like, hey, Cap, things are pretty good. What are you doing? You know, America, love it or leave it, right? No. Protesting in America, uniquely American. It's America, love it, so change it. And then it turns out, I guess underneath, things weren't so good. Kaepernick was right. Raj and Chris, if you say Max one more time in my ear, I swear to God, let me finish this and then I'll get to it. So underneath, it was right. Cap was right. There were problems that needed to be addressed. And then public tide turned for Cap because he took an inconvenient stance, a public stance that was inconvenient and unpopular. And then later it became mainstream the way Ali did when he refused induction into the Vietnam War. And then the tide turned against the war. And then Nixon was out of office and all the corruption was gone. And you had an honest guy in the White House, right? And everyone loved Ali. And now things have changed in this country. And there's hope for optimism. And maybe some kind of healing, right? And Kaepernick, who stood up for or kneeled for what he believed in a uniquely American act, has not been given a job opportunity, except when the NFL tried to smuggle a waiver. They tried to say, hey, sign this and waive your rights in order to get a tryout. And his team was too smart for that. But now Jerry Jones, whose team is going nowhere, who calls itself America's team, and Jerry Jones, who was against Kaepernick early, but eventually kneeled with his players because he likes a buck. He wants everyone to patronize the Cowboys. Imagine just the PR bonanza. Imagine how interesting it would be for Captain America, to play for America's team. The Cowboys ought at least to bring him in and give him a look. See if he can still play. 888-SAY-ESPN. Max. Paul in California, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Max, you're my favorite guy on the radio, man. You really are, and in TV, but I have to respectfully disagree with you on hiring Colin Kaepernick as even a possibility at this point.
Okay, why?
And the main reason is because anytime you're an employer, like I'm a geotechnical engineer, right?
Yep.
If I go to my job and I'm going around and I'm going to more job sites and I get real political, I get a reputation for being very political while on the clock. Mm-hmm. It's going to become a problem if I get released and I try to get rehired again. The employer is going to do a risk evaluation assessment and say, oh, last time this guy was here, it caused a lot of...
Paul, can I tell you something? I think your premise is incorrect. I would agree with you if Kaepernick was the only one making a political statement. Then I'd agree. But once you have a flag ceremony where everyone should stand, supposedly, right? Then that's if Kaepernick kneeling is a political statement before the flag, then him standing must also be a political statement. And in that case, what your argument is, Max, if I have a job and I don't publicly parrot the political stance of my employer, then I understand if he gets rid of me. Well, you may understand, but I wonder if your First Amendment rights, if those protections don't, in that case, extend into the workplace. And I'd love to see a case go up the courts and see what the answer is. Lauren in Staten Island, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Hi, how you doing?
Go ahead, Lauren.
I want to make 2 points. One about Antonio Brown and another about Colin Kaepernick.
You got 30 seconds. Shoot.
Okay. First of all, Colin Kaepernick, yes, he was ahead of his time because what he was standing up for was social injustice and police brutality. And look, the only good thing that has come out of 2020 is that people have to open their eyes now about what's going on.
ESPN News, the ESPN app, and SiriusXM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. The football scientist is going to drop by. Drop some fantasy football knowledge on us all in a few minutes. He wasn't on the show last week, was he, Raj?
No, we kind of do them every other week.
And I
ESPN
started Carson Wentz and lost.
He could have talked you out of it.
He's playing the Dallas secondary, not to mention Dallas firstary and thirdary. he's playing the Dallas front seven plus the Dallas secondary. He's going to rack up some points.
Hey, real quick, I know you have debates with Orlovsky and all these guys, in First Take, I see you debating all these guys, how good Wentz is. Not even that, going against Dallas, who has made every other opposing quarterback look like a Pro Bowler, if not a Hall of Famer. Not even that can make Wentz look good.
You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and I'm going to get to some calls right now, as a matter of fact. I want to get some calls right away, Raj. Let's put those calls up.
All right.
And I'll say this about Wentz before I get to the calls. See what I did there?
Yeah. Is he down? What happened, Max? Did the Wentz people, someone in Philly, put him down? Chris, what's going on? Bubba, what happened? What is going on?
Looks like I
can't hear anyone.
Lost old Max here. He's talking on TV.
See, now here's what I think. Yeah, he's talking on TV. His mouth is moving. Looks like he's waxing poetically. And I think the people in Philly, someone got to the lines. We can't talk bad about Wentz. Maybe it was Orlovsky.
We're checking back here in Bristol what the deal is. Chris is scrambling frantically to try and figure out. We're trying to make sure he's still connected and make sure everything's good.
Was it you? You've never been on the show before. Was it you who didn't like him talking bad about Wentz? Are you the one doing this?
Well, I'm a Cowboys fan, so he can bash.
See, there we go. I knew I had something in common with you. Now, do you agree with my assessment that not even against the Dallas Cowboys could Wentz look good? That shows you right there if he's a good quarterback or not.
Sorry, say it again. Chris was asking me a question.
I said, since you're a Cowboy fan, do you agree with me that not even against that horrible Dallas secondary, frontary, like they said, thirdary, could Wentz look like a good NFL quarterback? That ends the argument, doesn't it?
No, it was ridiculous. I mean, the Cowboys have no one out there. Diggs had done nothing all season. He was horrific all season, and he has 2 interceptions against Wentz. That is not showing you a positive about Diggs. That is showing you a negative about Wentz.
And Diggs, the rookie cornerback for the Cowboys, Bubba's talking about, he's done something this season. He's been on every single highlight reel of the opposing teams. I mean, they call him a shadow, but, I mean, my goodness, he has gotten chewed up by every and any wide receiver that they've faced being the Cowboys. So, I don't know.
It was
and
ridiculous.
what do you think about – how about what Max said earlier, in case people missed the first hour? Captain America, Colin Kaepernick, going to America's team. The Cowboys are on their 4th, 5th string quarterbacks this week. They're deciding between. What do you think about his take that they should sign Colin Kaepernick?
I mean, well, it would certainly be interesting. I don't think there's any chance in the world Jerry Jones would actually do it. But if he does love publicity and the news, and if he wants to get right back in there, that would be something to do it for sure. I just don't think there's any way Jerry would do it. But, I mean, if we're talking about what's a better option right now, Colin Kaepernick or Cooper Rush or Garrett Gilbert, I mean, they've all probably last played an NFL game 4 years ago. So, I mean, at this point, but I just don't think there's any chance Jerry would do it.
Well, I agree with you. Jerry's already backed himself in the corner in the stance he's taken against, kneeling for the anthem and everything to sign Kaepernick. However, there are a couple of things where I think this is the perfect match. It's the match made in heaven, America's team and Captain America, Colin Kaepernick. One, you said Jerry loves nothing more than publicity and attention. This would give him both of those things full front. He would have all of that. Second, with the Cowboys' offensive line being that horrible, I mean, who other than Kaepernick to be back there? He can at least move a little bit and be mobile. Anyone they put back there is just a sitting target. Well, they scored 1 touchdown. I think I heard Greeny, you guys said this. They scored which is a meaningless touchdown. Since my man Dak went out, they've scored 1 touchdown. The Dallas Cowboys offense. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing better would have been if they could have snuck in there and got him in time for play against the Steelers. But obviously, wouldn't even if he signed, he couldn't play right away. But yeah, I mean. He's just never going to be in there. Jerry would just he's just too stuck to his guns. There's no chance he's ever going to come back and would ever admit any mistake or he just no chance. As much as we'd love to see it,
no chance.
He's just hey, he's going to go out there and Garrett Gilbert, Cooper Rush, whatever he's got, that's what he's going to go with.
All right, and Max also had an interesting take, I felt, on Antonio Brown, who I'm sure everyone knows is back in football. He's on the field with the Buccaneers. Now, he says the Buccaneers are a great fit for Antonio Brown because they don't, quote unquote, need him. He feels when Antonio Brown has like power, or he goes to a place that really needs him, he can act a fool. Now, I inserted that word there, but what's your take on that, Bubba?
Well, we actually have Max earlier. By the way, this is the Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio. We were having some issues with Max, but here is Max earlier today explaining why he thinks Antonio Brown in Tampa Bay is a good fit.
I think, in fact, you don't want Antonio Brown going to a team that really needs him. You want him to be a luxury for that team. That's why I like him on the Bucs. Strong leadership, the strongest veteran leadership under center in Tom Brady, the GOAT, 6 championships. And weapons everywhere you look. Does Antonio Brown make them absurd and embarrassing on offense? That's how good they are. Like an embarrassment of riches? Yes, he does. But he's not necessary. And why do I like that better for Antonio Brown? I think it acts as a check against his worst impulses. I think AB needs to be in a position where he's like, oh, these dudes can get rid of me at any time. They really don't need me. I'm just a luxury. And if that can serve as a check on his worst impulse, on his lesser impulses, right? In addition to him hopefully having matured a bit, maybe it can work. Maybe he can stay on the field.
What do you think? You think it's going to work? Think he can stay on the field?
I mean, it's tough to bet. I don't know. I mean, you thought his relationship with Brady, you're like, oh, man, they're friends. But they were. Yeah. He was just in New England, and it lasted 1 game. So, I mean, I'd like to think that he's learned. But how many times can you say he's learned? Because it just keeps not working, and it's not working. And I believe we now have Max on the phone.
And that
so Max
is why Raj, that's how Raj really embarrassed himself
I'm brilliant.
Last Tuesday. How much of that?
Oh my God.
Wait, hold on. I'm getting something now that people missed that whole I can't tell that whole story. It took half a segment.
No, we had to cut you off. As soon as you started going to that embarrassing story of mine, I had to cut you off. So we pretended there was technical
abuse of power.
So Bubba and I could get some airtime. Bubba and I, good job. That was a great plan.
Abuse of power. Oh, my God. Can you imagine? Yes. They had me doing microphone tests because the whole thing just dropped. And I'm coming from the ESPN studios. So I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the microphone. And I realized, what if people are listening to this? And then I realized, still more interesting than most radio you'll hear. See that, Raj? That's entertainment.
You did Dak. You did a Dak. By taking you off the show, you showed how valuable you were.
That's right.
Like Dak taking himself, or not taking himself.
Find out I'm in the middle of a contract negotiation, and that's what happened. I showed everybody. Your day was going along just great. You're in the car. You're thinking, like driving around stuck in traffic, and then you're like, oh, wait, my boy Max is on. You turn it on, all of a sudden I'm gone. Damn. Listening to Raj and whoever else. I don't even know. I couldn't hear anything. Talk about God knows what. What were you two fools talking about, Raj?
Well, actually, just in case you missed the first hour, we recapped some of the things that we thought of the idea of Captain America, Colin Kaepernick, joining America's team. That was brilliant.
I can only imagine you guys trying to interpret what I said and then rehashing it for the audience. It's like playing telephone. They're like, brilliant. They're gonna think I said something I didn't at all say.
You see the phone lines there? The phone lines are like, give another hour to Raj and Bubba. That's what they're saying right now.
The Raj and Bubba show.
In for that. Yeah, it'll be like the Raj and Johnny Hecker, Raj Groves. And then we recapped the reason that you said earlier about Antonio Brown is a good fit because Tampa Bay doesn't need him. And I thought that.
What did you tell people I said about Captain America? Why is Captain America? I just need to hear you explain it. What's going on in your brain when I gave all those reasons? How do you interpret that? Let's hear it.
Well, I didn't get into the political aspect of it, but I did get into there.
Which is the whole aspect of it.
More than anything. Publicity and notoriety, he would get all that signing Kaepernick. And even though he's backed himself in the corner on the national anthem stands, he gets all that. And there was such a banged up offensive line. Cap would stand a better chance
Now,
back there
Raj,
than
those everyone, just let's be very clear. Those are Raj's points. They're not bad points, but they're Raj's points. They also are mine, but they're way down on the list. By the way, notoriety, Raj, means publicity, but about like you're known, but for bad things. People use notoriety, I mean just you're well known, but it's for bad things. And kneeling, as Cap did to protest in America, is uniquely American, and a great protest in America, protection of First Amendment rights, is one of the greatest things about this country. Now, another great thing about this country, though not quite up there with the First Amendment, is Joyner, the football scientist, who joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. KC, are you there?
I am here.
Casey, I just experienced a nightmare. I went into a very sophisticated, I'm talking about sophisticated argument about Captain America and why that's really Kaepernick and why the Cowboys should sign him and what kneeling for the flag represents and actors of good faith in this country on different sides of issues. And it was complex and sophisticated, and I masterfully weaved all the themes in and did it dramatically. And then my mic dropped here from the ESPN studios, and Raj pretended that he was going to be able to articulate all the points I just made for the audience and proceeded to butcher everything I said, but represented it as my point of view. Do you see how horrifying that is for me, Casey?
That's just awful. That sounds nightmarish.
It was nightmarish, but now the nightmare is, at long last, I just want to say, at long last, our national nightmare is finally over. Now, KC Joyner, the football scientist, I have heard time and again in analytics, you never invest heavily in running backs. You don't draft them high. You don't pay them because it's a position at which it's easy to find some kind of approximate value much more cheaply than the elite guys, in terms of the draft the draft pick, where you're drafting and how much you pay them. But Casey, I've always thought, I don't mind drafting a running back up high if you think they're different, because they hit the ground running, literally. They're like, and figuratively, they're top players from day one. They don't have to learn the position like a tackle might, like an offensive tackle. And you can run them into the ground, and you never have to pay them, because if they're really great, you can franchise them. You never really have to give them the long contract. By the time you're done on their rookie deal and a couple of franchise tags, you say, hey, you only have 2 years ahead of you, really. We'll give you some, guarantee that's very modest. So I don't mind it. And yet, I'm still told, no, that's no good. Why is that no good?
Well, they'll say it's no good because they say that running backs are, like you say, are a position that you can go get. Hey, you can go get James Robinson, having a great year, undrafted running back, and say, yeah, you can do that. The problem is that, like, when you look at last Sunday, look at Dalvin Cook and what he did. He does a fantastic job on a metric I have called good blocking yards per attempt. It measures how productive you are when you get quality run blocking. There's only a couple of backs in the league that can give you 10 yards per carry in that category. Most can give you 7.5, but there's only a couple of backs that can give you 10, and only a couple that can give you 10 on a consistent basis. Barkley, Cook, other guys like that. When you can get that type of player, it is worth investing in them because they can give you that type of productivity.
Now, okay, you have done a lot of research in this area, right, of running backs. And I was told by Bill Polian, the architect of the Buffalo Bills, who were a powerhouse, and later the Colts, who were a powerhouse, and he told me a running back makes the offensive line, because I was complaining that, if you don't have an offensive line, you ain't going to have a run game. I don't care who you have back there. And he said, no, it's the opposite. And what he's forgotten about football, I'll never know. I'm not comparing my football knowledge, but I thought he was wrong about that. But I have to take it seriously. This guy didn't do it like on paper. He went out and constructed powerful teams. What has your research told you about the relationship between the offensive line and the running back? I'm thinking about teams now, like, for example, the Chicago Bears, right? Who, if they had offensive line, I think they'd be a real problem for teams, but they don't. What has your research showed you?
Well, I'll bring up another person named Jim Finks, who's a Hall of Fame NFL general manager, and he said back in the 70s, he had Walter Payton as his running back, and he said Walter Payton is only going to be as good as the blocking that we give him. Mm-hmm. So he looked at it from a different perspective, and what the research I've done, I've got that metric, as I said, good blocking yards per attempt. Well, that leads off a good blocking rate, which is how often an offense gives its ball carriers quality run blocking, which means you just didn't let, it's a lot of things, but it means you didn't let the defense disrupt in rush attempts. If you get good blocking on a rush attempt, the league averages around 7.9 to 8 yards per carry. So you can be very productive. If you don't, it's fewer than 2 yards. And there hasn't been a back in the nearly 15 years that I've done this metric that has averaged a qualifying back, a guy who has a good volume of carries, who averages as many as 3 yards per carry when he gets bad blocking.
But now, isn't that a skewed sample because you won't have a back normally? Like if teams invest heavily in a back, usually they'll have an offensive line, and you're not going to give the ball to your back X number of times a game that would qualify for your study unless you're getting some returns. Doesn't that skew the sample a bit?
Well, you were talking any back with over 100 planned rushing attempts. So you can even include quarterbacks if you get planned enough planned rushing attempts. Mm-hmm. Chris Johnson didn't reach it. Saquon Barkley didn't reach it in the year when he led the league in good blocking yards per attempt. Anybody with these guys who are getting 300 carries, if they're not getting quality run blocking, they're not getting very much production.
So let me get this straight. So there's no such thing as a productive back behind a bad offensive line. A good offensive line will, on average, make any back look really good. Who am I thinking about from a couple years ago with the Cowboys, pre-Ezekiel Elliott? Cowboys running back pre-Ezekiel Elliott. Go ahead, Raj. Go ahead. Now's your time to chime in.
Murray.
Murray. What do you mean Murray?
DeMarco Murray.
Oh, DeMarco Murray, right. DeMarco Murray was like a B-plus back, I thought, who looked like an A back because of the Dallas offensive line. Maybe he wasn't even B-plus. Like, who knows? So what I'm trying to figure out is if you have an excellent offensive line, is it worth... Like, we know there's no point in having a great back if you don't have an offensive line, right? That's step one. Step two is, in this kind of way of thinking, if you do have an excellent offensive line, you're going to get such amazing returns on your running game. Is the premium that a premium back gives you over the average back behind a good offensive line worth investing in? You see what I'm saying?
It can be if you get somebody like a Barkley, because Barkley in his best year a couple of years ago, he averaged 10.4 yards per attempt on good blocking carries.
Good Lord.
And he did it with a huge workload, a huge workload, and he can still put up that kind of production, and he's giving you the same quality of production on carry 1 as he is on carry 300. That means you can also invest in other positions, because now you've got him being your bell cow. You maybe need a backup and somebody who you can put on the inactive list.
So the value of a bell cow, the value of a bell cow, it seems that you're saying, is that if the carry 300 yields the same returns as carry 1, then you don't have to use roster spots on extra running backs, basically, right?
Exactly. Belichick will use a lot of different players for a lot of different reasons. Even he's bell-cowed players before, but that is the value of it, to say, I've got one guy who can get all my carries and another guy maybe is a change of pace, something of that nature, and now I can use these other roster spots to add another cornerback, to add another offensive lineman, to add somebody else. There's where some of the value is if you've got a quality bell-cow running back.
Okay, now, this is very interesting to me. I feel enlightened. You hear that, America? No such thing as a great back behind a bad offensive line. Doesn't exist. A good offensive line turns any back into a productive back. The elite backs are worth it behind good offensive lines, not just for a couple extra yards, because if you're averaging 7 or 8 yards per carry with just about any back, 10 yards is great, but you're doing great anyway. They're really worth it because if they're bell cows, if they and they're as good on carry 300 as on carry 1, it frees up roster spots for extra positions. I want to ask you a fantasy question before I get out of here. Okay. Give me a high quality fantasy football play this weekend.
A high quality fantasy football play this weekend. I'm going to go for Josh Allen returning to form. He's had 5 straight games and he's had terrible production. I told people before the season that he was going to be too inconsistent to lean on as a